minute issues? Huh?
Just kidding.
No?
Actually, I do not think I found them. I'm just looking last time. There are only three of you here anyway.
Right, I wasn't
Was
here.
it 4 of us? Three?
I move the minutes as presented.
I'll second it.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Done. All right, as you may remember, when we last left our heroes, Vicky and, you said your name is Tim? Yeah. Tim would not know this, or maybe they've heard of it. But anyway, at the meeting, David Kahn and I both felt that it would be nice to have the option to have an all-in-one draft, which is why I did that. And the thinking was, and I think the two Riches were more neutral, as I recall. But as we were going through everything, we were doing a lot of jumping around where this has gotta go in this section and that section, and while it was a nice idea to have it continue on the accessory use page, it just seemed like it was gonna be user unfriendly to have it, make them go to all these different sections. So that was the reasoning for that. So you got an outline, and now we have something from Rich Mengy.
But I think, just to say, I think this works.
Okay, good.
So,
Yeah, it seems to make sense to have it together.
and now,
So-
we're just gonna throw a rock in the pond and.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, I made a stab at it.
Yep.
Okay, so before we get to Rich Mengy's, and thank you for,
Do I need one more?
David needs one and David.
Yep.
There you go.
so, Rich Mengy, seriously, thank you for, taking the initiative on that. So I had let's just finish off on this before we get on to Rich Mengy's. I had one question about D. Did we wanna have that multiple tractors, that trackers will be counted as single solar system because it wasn't
Yes.
anywhere else?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
So the answer to that is
Yes.
yes.
yep,
There was not much hesitation about that.
yep.
That was a emphatic yes. And then, I realized I had I don't know whether it's an edit or what, but on I, under Article 14, a roof-mounted solar energy system is not considered to be a structure, but if it
I think so.
if it modifies,
Okay, can I just interject
Please.
here? Because I think that the whole idea that it is not a separate structure should be in its definition. So I would put back on definitions, roof-mounted solar energy system. A solar energy system that is attached to the roof of a building, just as you've got, and then put, this is not a separate structure in definition.
okay, so after that first sentence, you would say,
This is not a separate structure.
or,
It is not.
It is not a
It-
separate structure yet. Because that's definitional.
okay,
And then I would,
Right.
and then we get into our conditions. If a roof-mounted
Hold on,
solar
hold on,
energy.
just let me finish.
Okay, yeah. It is not a separate structure.
okay, and where are we now?
Can we go back to little I?
Little I,
Yep, which is one of the conditions. If a roof-mounted solar energy system modifies
Modifies.
the building footprint or height of the structure on which they are mounted, the resulting structure must conform. Because that's like telling you about, like, the condition under which you can have it.
right,
So that's all.
Oh.
So
must conform to the dimensional controls of the line
Yes,
zone.
Yep.
All right, so
Yep.
we're taking out that first sentence there.
Well, we're taking out, is not considered to be a structure if, so you're putting an if at the beginning. So if a roof-mounted
Oh, I
solar
see.
energy system modifies the building footprint or height of the structure on which it is mounted,
It is not, yes.
which it is mounted, the resulting structure must conform to the dimensional controls, just as you have it.
Okay, and that sounds good. And I also think I made a minor error in the, under, one of the things David Kahn raised, which was a good point, was to state affirmatively that large SES can't be over, the amount that we're saying, but I think I put it incorrectly here. It should read at the very bottom of conditional use permits, large SES of 20,000 square feet or greater are not permitted because of the wording in the other ones.
Yeah, so I just looked at it a little differently. I thought we should have a separate, thing, so that where we have, right after definitions, I think we should say small solar energy systems are allowed as an accessory use on a lot if they meet the following conditions. And so we have only little I, 2I, and 3.
Hold on, I'm a little confused here. So we're at Article 14 under,
Right, yeah, so we're, and after definitions, that
Okay.
says definition, you would say, here's a section on small energy systems, blah, 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 1, 2, 3. And then we have a thing for large solar energy systems. And we say, just to be parallel, what we have is, as 5 there would become the sentence, which is parallel to the small energy systems, letting us know that it's an accessory use. We say large solar energy systems may be a primary or accessory use on a lot and shall require a conditional use permit. And then go into the conditional uses or conditional standards. One is that it can't be in a location that requires the upgraded utilities.
well, hold on, because
Okay,
so what did we add? What are you adding?
I'm just adding this, so what I'm saying is that we have a separate section on small solar energy systems, which includes little I, little double I, and little triple I.
Oh, I see.
And then there's a section on large,
I got it.
which we use little v to say a large solar energy system may be primary or accessory, just as you have it, because that's parallel to what you said about the smalls.
Okay,
And then,
so this is just organizational.
organization,
Okay.
yeah, that's all it is, organization. And so then, the first little I for large would be that you can't put it in a location that requires the upgraded utilities. And then the second one is, only large SESs of 20 feet or less are permitted. And the third can be Keene's criteria or whatever Rich Menge's come up with. And then the small energy, I guess that's the decommissioning stuff,
Right.
yeah. So
All right,
that's,
so-
so that's, those are the things.
Could
that we-
you, I get what you're saying, but I don't quite get how you're laying it out. So could you send that to David?
Yes, I can. Can you send it to me as a Word?
Yeah.
And I didn't bring my computer, so I can't do it now,
Yeah,
but I'll send it to you
that's fine.
tomorrow morning.
So, yeah,
So it'd be just like two different
you'll
things.
just, you'll
Yep.
organize it differently.
Yep, and if Rich Menge's purposes and all that, I'll put those in too. Because maybe what he's written for the purposes and all that can be just put in instead of the blank that we have.
Okay, so let's take some time, shall we, to read?
Actually, let's go through the,
Oh, you have more comments?
I have comments.
Sure,
on
sure,
the-
sure.
On the
Yeah,
definitions, yes, I think everything that you put in italics, I agree with, so that up at the beginning.
Oh, okay.
Distribution.
Change distribution.
They should all be gerunds to be consistent.
I agree.
Yes,
Okay.
and then, strike the word several and use multiple.
Well, hold it, why don't we use the word more?
We could do that.
I would just
Where
say.
are we looking?
More.
B.
Vicki, that's really plain language.
It's really plain
Yeah,
language.
that
One
people-
or
that
more
people might
subject
understand.
panels,
I think more is fine.
Yep.
More, so instead of several or multiple, just put more.
How did you get that, maybe,
I don't know, I just printed it out.
oh,
So what did you get?
Well, I don't have an A, B, C, D, E on that page, but that's okay.
David sent this,
Yeah, it was
more
sent,
recently.
it sent out, a few days ago, I guess.
Oh, I might have taken the first one, okay.
Okay, so I would just say more, and then you have that in a other location also.
Okay,
in C.
and more in C.
Yeah, just, it's
Yeah.
simple,
Yep.
yeah.
And, what about the determined, do we need determined to be?
I don't think so.
No,
No.
take that out.
Yep.
That was correct, take that out.
Okay.
And then in E, down there, a solar energy system that is fixed to the ground, full stop.
Okay.
Um,
Oh, and that's like a period?
Fixed to the ground, period, right, then the footprint shall be measured. Instead of, just
Anything else?
striking the,
Taking out non-tracking and ground mounted?
yeah, right. And then to make it parallel, I would move the fixed solar energy system above D. So I just swap those two, so that we then say, we've got roof mounted, small, large, fixed solar energy, we talk about the footprint, then we talk about tracking solar energy, and we talk about its footprint, and we're done. Do the
That's,
whole.
I mean, that's.
So, but then a tracking system is a fixed system? Is that what
Yes.
you intend?
Yes,
Say that again.
Yeah, I didn't get that either.
So a tracking
Oh,
system
no,
is
no,
a
no.
fixed system? Because if
No.
you
It's ground
say
mounted.
No,
a
it's a
solar energy system that is fixed to the ground, well, a
Right.
tracking solar
Yeah,
energy
that's
system is
why it
fixed to
has-
the ground.
A solar
Yeah,
energy
yeah,
system
yeah.
that is fixed,
Okay, I mean, I don't feel strongly about it, I'm content with it as it.
well,
as
what
it
do we,
Yeah,
a
that
solar
makes-
energy system
you're
that
right.
is fixed and
Does not track.
not, or, well, whatever, let's just get this part. A solar energy system that is fixed and non-track, or does not track, and or ground mount, I don't know.
You could say a solar energy system that is fixed to the ground but is not a tracking solar energy system.
Good.
Yep.
okay,
Could
yeah.
you
that's
say that
good.
again slowly?
Sure. A solar energy system that is fixed to the ground but is not, and is not a tracking solar energy system.
And
Tracking.
is not a tracking solar energy system.
Which in
So that's.
initial caps, because that's a defined term.
Yep.
Initials,
Fixed to the
Initial
ground
caps to
and
make it
is
tracking
not
solar
a-
energy system so that it's,
so it's SES or solar energy
Oh,
system?
okay.
No,
I'd write out as solar
Yeah.
energy
That's right.
system.
We said solar energy system, but capitalize each, the big first
Oh,
letter
oh,
of
I
each.
got it, okay.
Initial
solar-
caps,
Yeah.
Not
Energy.
a tracking.
Not a tracking, yes.
Okay, good. And what, I don't, so you're okay with this? The D, do you want a D and E switched, or?
I'm okay with them, having made this change, I'm okay. with
Okay.
the-
All right, and you got anything else?
In the second page, solar energy systems are allowed as an accessory use. Would we capitalize those words? Are they
Oh, I don't know.
defined terms?
Should that be capitalized
Also, if it's
accessory use?
Defined or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I wanted to be sure that, the multiple trackers goes into D, you don't forget that.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
They go where? Wait, what?
Into D, as you suggested, so we have accessory use of a structure is there,
Mhm.
but we don't have
You're talking about D?
well, no, what I'm making sure that your question, do we wanna say the multiple trackers?
Oh,
are
yeah,
counted? That
yeah.
gets moved up.
Okay.
We didn't say that. We do have a definition of accessory use of structure.
Accessory uses is a, in the general provisions, is not, other than capitalized because the first letter is capitalized, but
Right,
the-
and then we have accessory building structure or use. So. I think it is a defined thing here.
Well, does that mean it should be capitalized or not?
Well, do we do that elsewhere in the ordinance? No.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't, that's.
I can find accessory uses throughout where it's not capitalized.
Right,
Okay,
yes,
okay,
just leave
good
it
question.
lowercase.
And then, do we need to call out 442 or whatever the proper,
For which?
for accessory use?
Yeah, well, what I was trying to say was to add it to, and then say, in 442, solar energy systems, instead of, just, having the whole thing, just say see Article 14, or whatever we call it.
It should be at least represented in 442, just so that,
Right,
because it's listing
Exactly.
all the accessory uses.
Right, but we don't have to go into a whole song and dance about it, just say,
Right.
Which is, I see what you've done here, yes.
yeah.
So in, add to, right at the very beginning,
Right.
add to 442, solar energy systems, see
yeah,
Article
this is
14.
what it, this is what it would say.
Okay, yep, no,
Okay.
I just figured out what that meant.
Okay,
So,
Yep.
in the initial definitions, I find the way we've expressed our formulas in D and E to be confusing.
okay,
It says, the footprint of let's start with D. The footprint of a tracking solar energy system shall be 70% of the total surface area of the solar collectors unless another part of the system has a greater footprint, in which case the greater footprint measurement will be used.
right.
What's confusing to me is whether, when we say, in which case the greater footprint measurement should be used, we mean it shall be used that greater footprint shall be the
That will-
footprint,
that will be
or
the foot-
if we mean, we'll use 70% of that
Right,
greater.
that's a good point. In which case, the greater footprint will prevail. How's that? Or
Well,
will-
it's still unclear, what is it that we mean?
So, say there's a platform
Mhm.
that is supporting a bunch of solar energy trackers.
Uh-huh.
And the coverage of the structure is greater than the coverage of the 70% of the collectors. So that would be
Okay, so then we mean.
it's mean 100%.
It's not 70% of that greater,
No.
it's if there's another structure, then we wanna use that instead
Exactly.
of. So if the panels are the largest coverage,
Yes.
then we take 70%.
Of them.
But if there's something else, so
That's
there's a
bigger.
border around the panels, it isn't collectors.
Or you had a platform.
Well,
and-
a platform underneath supporting them that's much, that is bigger.
Okay.
Then, but, so how would you say that?
No, if that's what we mean to say, I think maybe this works.
Okay,
In which case, the greater footprint measurement shall be the greater footprint measurement shall be the footprint.
Shall govern.
shall prevail, govern,
No,
shall be used?
well, are we talking about lot coverage? Shall be determined to be the lot coverage, or?
No, the footprint, because it's not, your lot coverage is the aggregate of all your structures. So this could
is
be just a
footprint.
portion.
Wait, shall be added, shall be considered lot coverage?
No,
Greater footprint shall be,
It's
Considered
a
part of-
footprint,
considered part of it.
measurement. It's not, it will add to the lot coverage eventually, but it's,
Yeah, you could say it could be part of.
will be part
I
of.
really hate to start mixing those two, because,
Yeah.
Yeah,
the way you look at this is you say, okay, here's all your structures, they each have an
Yeah.
individual footprint, all those individual footprints added together is your lot
Right.
coverage.
Right.
So,
Shall be considered as part of the lot coverage?
How about if we say, in which case, the greater surface area shall be the footprint?
or system has a greater,
Greater area shall be the footprint.
how's that?
It's
How's that
just to
different?
avoid saying footprint twice in the same phrase, yes.
But does that work, David, the other David?
I think, or just say the greater area,
Greater area will
Shall
be
be.
used, the
Shall be
greater,
counted toward lot coverage?
well, he wants to avoid,
I know,
Going
but
from footprint.
so why are we even, yeah, but what, okay,
I don't see the need for putting lot coverage.
okay,
It's defined throughout, you know, in the ordinance.
So David Robbins, would it work from your reckoning if we said, in which case the greater area measurement will be used, or?
Yeah, I have, that,
Because we're really using this to determine whether it's 2,000 square feet, bigger than 2,000 square feet, or between 2,000 and 20,000, right?
Essentially.
Yes.
And then
Right.
that in turn also gets incorporated into lot coverage, but
Right,
But that's sort of like a separate,
that, yeah, that's,
Right.
we're not even confused, we
Consideration.
don't wanna confuse that.
So we're just
issue.
replacing the word footprint
With
with the word
area?
area.
Okay.
That makes it easy.
so we need that in D and E,
Yep, the greater area, yep,
okay,
The greater area
will be used,
will be used.
or shall we say shall?
No.
Will, okay,
and then do we wanna say use as the footprint, or is it?
well, I
just
think what my impression was, we wanted to avoid saying footprint twice, unless
Right.
unavoidable.
I just wanna make it clear,
Yep.
particularly in D, that we're not saying,
Mhm.
okay, we'll take 70% of that grade.
Yeah, I see, yeah, right, that's, yep,
Yeah, okay,
I think,
I think that's a good,
Yep.
good catch,
And I had,
okay.
when we say cumulative footprint, I'm thinking that 9 out of 10 people reading this will not know what that means. So do we wanna
Well,
find that somehow?
we ended up with, I mean, that's not that hard a word.
That's a, here, let me.
And if they, I mean,
Well,
seriously, if people don't
Yeah,
know
but if they're
it,
reading,
they can ask, but, the reason we ended up with cumulative is because we were doing, as I recall, is we were doing somersaults saying,
what they had.
well,
what
maybe, I don't know, I just
difficult word.
reading it, I just wonder whether people are really gonna understand.
Well, let me see if I can get a synonym that looks better.
more
Uh,
area.
Cumulative,
just-
increasing, accumulative, accumulating, growing. Aggregate, how about
Well,
aggregate?
that's not any easier than,
How about a mast?
Yeah, I mean,
I
a
mean-
word that combine comes to mind, and, you know, it,
Maybe it's,
I think,
I think it's
just,
fine.
I think
it's
cumulative is
just adding
fine.
that,
Right.
adding all the
Yeah,
size of the panel.
yeah.
Right.
And if somebody, doesn't understand it, that
I guess so.
they
I
can
just-
ask.
right, and, I mean, and it's, there's a very plain understanding, common English description of it, and if
Yeah.
they say, if they wanna come in and say to David, so, what does exactly this mean? David
Yeah.
says, no, this one
Right.
covers
I think
200
that,
square feet, this covers 200 square feet, this one covers.
that's why we can't
And-
come
and-
up with that, because it was a word that actually said what it meant.
And,
Or meant what
and
it
it's
said.
defensive, it's plain English, it's defensive.
Yeah, I would,
Yep.
I would stick
I'm
with
happy.
it.
All right, okay. I mean, I think a lot of people are gonna think, they're not gonna know that it's the size of the panels, they're gonna, it's the size of,
The solar energy system
the
has
area
got,
that's
with a
taken up.
cumulative footprint.
the
Well,
area
a
that's taken up.
cumulative panel footprint, well, it may
No,
not be the
just-
panels.
It's just cumulative footprint.
Yeah,
right.
I think we just
Right.
are better
Ah,
off.
Okay. Well, I
We
guess they
had
can
combined before and we took it out and put this
Exactly.
in. So, good, I'm doubly content.
Yeah,
All right, well, I guess.
I
Yep.
think there's no perfect solution, and it was the best one we
Right,
found.
well, they can ask, I
Yep. Okay.
Can I add one more
You
suggestion?
can add to your
So
heart's
if we go
delight.
to definition C for the large solar energy systems,
Mhm.
I don't think regulatory language should be in the definition. So the last sentence, solar energy systems larger than 20,000 square feet are not allowed,
Uh-huh.
needs to go into Article 14.
Mhm.
This is, oh, I see.
Yeah, just take
Yeah,
that
so,
over there. And I'll make that change when I do my division between small,
okay, so you'll
large.
just add it,
Yes, I'll put it at the end, as a,
and you'll add the multiple trackers will be counted as a single,
Yes, I'll do that,
okay.
yep. And then David can
Okay, so you
prepare
have
his
all
notes
these,
tomorrow.
you have all these notes of what we
Yes, I
should-
do.
Okay,
Yes, I do.
all right, anybody else?
You caught the two typos in the purpose section, or were we not talking?
I haven't got
I haven't gotten there yet.
Yep.
Okay.
When do you have to, What do you have, there is no purpose section.
No purpose, that's why I'm thinking yours is gonna
Oh.
be great.
Yeah, we're
Just
looking
pop
at
it
your
right in.
purpose, you're giving us purpose, Rich.
Okay.
Are people ready to move on to Rich's?
Yeah.
Okay, so shall we, how do you wanna handle it? You wanna read through it first, like we're in a library, or just,
Let's read the first section one.
Okay,
with
good
the
idea.
authority and purpose, because that's something we don't have yet,
Okay.
and maybe that'll be just
great.
dandy. Well, hold it, is it a separate ordinance? So,
I think we're talking about it as a separate article.
separate article.
As an article,
Yeah,
so we'll just go article.
okay.
So, well, I guess I'm not quite understanding what we're trying to do, because I have the Town of Lyme Small Winds Energy System Ordinance.
That's separate,
Yeah, that's separate.
I've
So-
got the Town of Lyme's telecommunications
Right,
facility
so
ordinance.
one of the problems with those, which we started to talk about, is they're not incorporated in the ordinance. I mean, they are part of the ordinance, but they're not incorporated in them. And it obviously is better if people can access these in the ordinance we have. We can, I mean, I wanted to incorporate those, but let's leave that for another time.
Okay, well, because I only asked, because I thought that's where we were headed, so maybe this language is good and it can be reformatted to whatever.
Right.
we-
Yeah,
Yeah,
all we're
I think
changing
so.
is from ordinance to article, that's all.
Yeah, okay.
So, all right, so let's go.
I think, okay, I'll shut up. Sorry.
Take notes.
So we're just reading that first section?
Yep,
Is everybody done with that?
yep.
Okay, who wants to say something?
I guess, I don't think we're really doing D, so whether we really need D or.
I think we are doing D.
Yeah,
Well, we're not really restricting it.
well,
Yeah, we
we
are.
are with the requirement that,
Scenic highway, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, no, and then they can't be located in the front yard
right,
in the Lime Common.
Right, but we're doing this, okay, yeah.
Yeah,
I
so
mean,
I think we
overall,
are.
we're not,
The word town in D should be capitalized.
the,
Okay.
right.
I think the whole first paragraph is, we don't need, I think
Right.
all the purposes are right on, and, we just put them right into our purpose section, which is empty right now.
Right,
Yep.
so we don't need the authority or anything.
No,
it's already in the ordinance, I
yeah,
think,
it's
isn't
in the
it?
zoning ordinance.
If it's an article, I assume that whatever broad authority is in the whole ordinance.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Um,
And then definitions, we just,
So,
Yeah, I think
That
we
is-
substitute what we just finished.
yes,
Right.
right,
Yeah.
exactly.
and then Lyme, in B, definition, define the authority of the town of Lyme too, just add a T.
Yeah.
I would also add the word "the" before historical in section D.
Protect the,
Yep, okay.
here. Okay, so we have a purpose.
He has many purposes, and really good ones.
Yeah,
I think
that's
excellent.
really good, Rich, thanks.
I don't know wherever you found them, but they sound good to me.
We'll take them.
I made up only one of them, so.
That's good, you did a good job.
Yeah, so then we have the definitions.
Yep. And standards,
What
we
we
already.
I think the standards are what
Yeah, what we already have.
we've already done.
Okay.
Okay, and conditional use permits, you cut and pasted the Keene thing,
The key stuff, yeah.
okay?
So, what are people, so you made some changes here?
The Keen stuff, I've crossed out a few things, where it didn't seem like it was applicable. I mean, they have just, they refer to their code as LDC or Land Development Code, so that wasn't appropriate.
So, for ours, our conditional uses are set forth here in this section,
Yeah.
no place, so we don't need to make the reference.
Hold on, so what are you saying?
Just, okay, so I'm on Rich
Mhm.
Maggie's page 4, going, we don't need to reference anything else, because we don't have a conditional
Well,
use.
what's he referring?
He's referring to conditional use standards, which we don't have. Right?
We don't have, well, we have conditional use, like in the senior housing, it's specific to
Yeah,
that.
right, so we don't have a general, it's just like, we have general standards for special
Requirements,
exceptions.
right.
But we don't have general standards for conditional uses. So this, in accordance with the conditional use requirements or submission and requirements as set forth below, it seems like, because
Right.
these are the commission, these are the standards here. Because you're doing a submission and some standards, so set forth below.
Okay, so to that point, maybe David Robbins, this might be a good time to, is it relevant to discuss this? Because
Yeah, that's,
yeah, so one thing David did, which is, I just got it, so I didn't, but it looks,
got it done today.
looks pretty cool. He basically takes our, so the original thing is from,
Let me pass it, I took the site plan review regulations,
Uh-huh,
and I pulled out the application requirements and the standards and requirements for proposed development, which is Article 10 and 11.
uh-huh,
And so word for word, I just took them out of the site plan. I did not change them, I did not edit them.
uh-huh.
There's stuff that absolutely, I don't believe, should be there, but that's the board's decision, not mine, so I left it. And so, and then what I did is I took Tim's document, his
Yep.
handwritten document, and I inserted all the stuff he had, that is all written in bold.
Yep, good.
There are some cases where his document kind of mimicked what was in here already, so I didn't,
Right.
there are a few things I didn't put in because they were covered
Uh-huh,
under what already exists.
yep.
so, Tim, your list, was that?
A lot of that was Keene.
But was it identical with what Rich Mengy gave us?
Who would know?
We'd have to go look. This is-
Yeah.
this is-
All right, so we would have to, so,
I mean, I basically took everything that Keen had and
and they can have it
Yeah.
back.
and,
And I took a lot of Keene also, so we're probably pretty much the same.
So anyway, we would have to go through and make sure that we have everything in there that we want, but,
I would look through the Keene one and just, and
Right.
then, it seemed to me this was just a good starting place.
so the question, with what you were raising, Vicki, is, would we just add, CUP requirements in the section, what is it, 12.2 or 12, where we have the special exceptions now?
No, I put it under the solar energy
Oh.
article because it's specific to the solar energy.
Oh, so it's just gonna be like 1,000,000 pages.
Yep, Patty is going to scream at me because her ballot is going to be huge.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna say something, and I think I know the answer, but I'm gonna say it anyway.
That's a great intro.
Can we, is there some way that we can rely on things like site plan review documentation and all to say, the conditional use application should meet the standards of the site plan review application? Because we've already written that down, and then we already know how that works and all. And then, whatever other criteria we need,
We could just add,
we can then say,
and this,
tell us the things that you gotta tell us for site plan review,
plus this.
and then these things.
Yeah,
And we don't have to design the whole conditional use
yeah, that'd be more efficient.
permit, and it
But
would be.
I would strongly read through all the
Yeah.
application requirements, because I think there's a lot of things that may not be applicable.
Okay,
You know, fresh water supply.
right,
Right.
in case the people putting it up get thirsty.
Right, you know, that's sewage disposal system.
Yep, and yes, and the question becomes, is it shorter to make a new conditional use permit section, or to list the exceptions to the standard? I don't know, I don't know the answer.
I imagine it would be shorter to make the additions and subtractions.
Well, maybe the Keene has everything we need anyway, you know?
All right,
They may cover it all, it's hard to do that right now when we're just, have both.
Yeah.
In reading it, there are some things, you know, like a public notice list. That's not, I didn't read that in anything from Keene. And is
Well,
it,
it's a part of the zoning though, so kind of. I mean, it would be nice to be able to just add the conditional use permit stuff
to the article.
to just, you know, as you do with variances and special exceptions, you need to submit an application form and,
But where would that go, the article or?
well, it'd be nice just to be able to insert conditional use permit but I don't think we have that, because
Well,
everything.
it could, I mean, it could go in 12, did I just write it?
Yeah, sure.
I think it's 12,
No, nothing goes in 12.
wait, I mean,
Elvis, site plan review.
no, if we did 12-2, Article 12, site plan review authorization, 12-2, conditional use permit authorization.
Well, I don't think you get authorized, that's a specific thing
All right.
that gives us the power. I like what you're trying to do, but.
Yeah, I see the
Yeah,
flaw.
It's different, no, I mean, I wish,
So maybe the question is for us to figure out is twofold. What approach, whether one or the other, between David's and Rich's, or a hybrid, and then how to do it most efficiently. Those are the two decisions we need, I think.
well, it's hard to.
We don't have to do it
Yeah,
tonight,
I
it's gonna
agree
be
that it
too
should
hard.
not be this long, and, these guys, he uses smaller print, including two columns, so of course it looks less.
And in college, I used bigger font.
Of course.
one of the things I know from the applicant's side, when you have a list of requirements, it is so much easier just to be able to go
Right.
down through and check
Right.
off,
Yeah.
okay, we got all this stuff, we're
Yeah.
ready to go.
Well, it's
Yeah.
also for us,
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
not have to
And-
check back too.
Well, and for me, because when I get an
Yeah.
application,
Yeah.
that's the first thing I do,
Right.
is go down through and,
All right, so our assignment, because we're getting pretty close,
We are.
is to figure out either or a hybrid of the two presentations here, and then how to make it most efficient, its most efficient presence in the ordinance. That is to say, least,
I like the hybrid approach because it is then refines it to be for what we want for solar energy systems. And regrettably, I think it's going to add to the length of the zoning ordinance and to the ballot. And I'm sorry in advance.
so then the question, then we go back to what Rich Mengy was saying, and maybe it would be better to make it an ordinance.
I don't think so. No, having it in one book
Yeah.
is so much better.
Okay,
And why can't these just end up being,
I got it to the back.
yeah, an
because,
appendix
well,
or?
they can, but we have to, and that's the one thing I was gonna suggest, is that we do a zoning amendment to either add them or reference them.
Right, well, what we could do is
We
put,
could just reference them so that people know they're there. People looking in
Right.
here now aren't even
right,
gonna know they exist.
we could have a book that said zoning ordinance, telecommunications ordinance, and wind energy ordinance. And then, you know, in the back, there's the other two. You know, this zoning comes first and then the other two. And that's, I think, pretty easy. You don't
But
need to
these
make
aren't
it-
zoning ordinances?
They're part of the, I mean, I don't know what the technical legal.
They are zoning ordinances,
The
they
ordinance.
just happen to be standalone and have not been incorporated in the.
And I don't know why that was.
I wasn't here.
Where does this come
That came from the state. I was here, but I was a
Weird, right?
I was a newbie. It was basically the state provided language, and the town just basically filled in the blanks
from? So this has been adopted,
Yes.
years ago.
yeah. I was
So
trying to remember, I
this
couldn't
is-
remember it.
The small wind energy system.
Oh, okay, yes, right, thank you.
Yeah, I couldn't remember.
And
where-
telecommunications was before my time.
Before 2009.
Well,
That
I
was
mean, I
after
tend to think that
2009.
we should not further complicate
Yeah.
things, so.
Okay.
I think going on what you're suggesting rather than what I had
Okay,
understood,
Okay.
yeah, is probably a better thing.
all right.
How we get there.
How we get there is-
I do like your idea that I may start just
Yeah, just do
printing
that.
the zoning ordinance
Yeah,
that
so
way.
they're all together, and just put a different, and we don't need to, it's not amending the zoning ordinance, it's just those three ordinances are together.
I can also put in the floodplain ordinance.
Well, yeah, there's four,
Now-
that's good.
Yeah.
So we could put it, even though that's not that's a state thing, right?
Well, no, it's not a state thing, I believe it was actually adopted by the select board, not by, it's a select board
So
ordinance and
just
not.
check whether, if there's any legal thing that we're, with the floodplain thing, but it'd be great to have them all.
I can check with FEMA, they're
We
auditing
just
me
call
next
these,
month.
you know, land use ordinances or something, and then we have
Yeah.
zoning, and then we have the other ones
Right,
that are on the other.
all in one place.
All in one book. And-
Because
and
if people are looking for that now, they'll never
But
find
they'd be
it.
separate, right, and then.
They're
Yeah,
separate.
there's separate in there, they have
Separate
separate
section.
title pages and,
Yeah.
Is this stuff on the website?
it should be, yes.
Yeah, I think so, yeah, but
But
it's,
I
not easy
really
to
like,
find.
I really like the idea of just sticking them all in the same book.
Yeah.
We don't have to change the language,
No.
we just have a cover page
Yeah.
that says, you have, there's
Yeah,
four.
well,
So-
so it could say, like revisions for zoning, and then
Well,
whenever
that's the
that
other
small
thing,
wind
right,
energy,
right,
have that
but-
date,
Yeah.
and the,
But yes, but there's no
telecommunications at that
approvals
date, and the
necessary.
floodplain at that date,
No.
and so it's just a
Right.
land use book.
Yep,
that would be great, I mean, it'll be much,
Okay.
much bigger.
And then I can put it up, I can actually append all the PDFs together in one and put it on the website.
Right.
Right, yeah.
Then everything's,
That would be better.
Yep.
in my free time.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
you'll find it.
so what are we gonna do about a conditional use permit? How are we gonna get?
Well, that's
I
the
mean,
big question.
Right, I mean, I don't know.
I don't think we're gonna sit here and.
Yeah, I don't
put it
think, well, I
together.
think people should go back to their corners over the next 2 weeks
Mhm.
and come in with with their creative ideas on how to do it.
One of the things I noticed, I think one of the communities, Lebanon, has an application for a conditional use.
That still
permit.
needs to be done also.
Well, we could copy Lebanon's.
Okay, so we need that too, we need the application.
Do we really? I mean.
Yeah, we do.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, people need to fill out a form.
Okay.
That was awfully wordy though.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, we
Needs to be
want this,
simpler.
certainly with the small ones, we want the small ones to be easy. So, but that wouldn't apply to the small ones,
Right.
this is just the large ones.
It's large ones.
Well, I mean, the large ones are big, at least by Lyme standards, so, you know, I think that's
I
fine.
mean, a large one is gonna be a many $100,000 project.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so, you know, it makes sense that there should be oversight.
But I think whoever mentioned the thing about, a butters list, I mean, it does feel to me like all along we've said that the reason we want to have review
Yeah.
is to get.
That's fundamental,
public
that people have a
comment.
chance to say what they wanna say.
Yeah.
What happened?
No, I'm changing the view just so that we can see, because Hebe just joined us. And
Hello, Hebe.
noticing it was not,
So,
showing
I don't know, so,
well.
I don't know who is here and who's not here, but Hebe is interested in becoming an alternate, so she's attending meetings and, participating as well. And at a certain point, when we can catch our breath, anybody on the board who wants to, ask Hebe questions, or if Hebe wants to ask, questions of the board, we'll get to that. All right, so back to this, what we're gonna do is go take this as homework.
Yes, I guess we should.
Okay, so
So we're gonna look at Rich's?
you're gonna look at Rich's, and you're also gonna look at
David's.
David's,
Yep.
and decide whether you wanna combine them, or,
Well, I think you do,
yeah, I think inevitably you'll combine them.
That's David's.
That's David's.
And like I said, all I did is I took the two articles out of
Right.
site plan review and then added
Yeah.
Tim's
no,
notes,
that,
so I don't
that's,
wanna
that's very helpful.
That wa-
take
was
credit
very-
for anything other than just merging
Oh, no,
it.
that's good, no,
That
that's
was
very
very
helpful. And in showing us the locations where
Yeah.
Tim's things would go is good.
Yeah, really good. All right,
So David, just for clarity, this is the application for site plan review?
Yes, it
Okay.
is directly out of
Yeah,
the,
good.
word for word, and I did not modify any wording, change any wording, take out anything.
which we would probably have.
Right,
So
that's,
this is basically site plan review plus.
yeah. And then anything you see in bold
Yep.
is what Tim had suggested.
Who's Tim?
Tim Cook. That's his handwritten list.
Yeah.
So, then I also have I think this was also from Rich Mankey, which was also from Keene. Article 16, so is that pretty much
That's,
what you?
yeah, that's what I cut and pasted.
Okay,
Yeah.
Tim, why were you reviewing this and making changes to it?
Well, I had just written up some conditional use.
oh, this was
language.
prior to,
This
this
was
was
a while
earlier.
ago. This was a while ago.
So he took it upon himself to put
Older
together
than
some.
Oh,
Yeah.
specifically for the
Condition-
solar energy or
Yeah.
generally?
Yeah,
you were-
solar energy.
Oh, I see, so you went through this and added stuff, or added notes to make it, try to take a cut at making it applicable to the solar energy.
Right.
I-
Just the
yeah, this
conditional-
is basically what-
conditional use,
Yeah, oh, okay, I remember these.
So we had, I think, a lot of different examples, that's how we started, and I think Tim went through the different other towns and then pulled together everything he thought was important. So we've had this for a couple of months.
Yeah,
So it's not
yeah.
new.
Right.
It's been our,
That was our
All
first,
that.
that was our first, he gave us the first thing,
Got it.
foundation.
Sorry to-
Yeah, no, that's okay.
No
It's got a
problem.
little bit of history, and everyone should know where it comes from.
All right. So we're pretty much done with that first section. You're gonna get that to David.
Yes, yep,
And then next time, we wanna tackle the CUP stuff. So can we move on to another subject?
yes.
Okay, so I mentioned last time, and Vicky, you,
I wasn't here.
yeah, but you sent us to, you notified the board about this a while
Oh,
back.
right, yeah,
The senior housing stuff.
yeah.
So, for people who weren't on the board at the time, our senior housing article was first presented, the year before it was passed, and at basically the last meeting, prior to that, we had learned that the state had created a law, or was hoping to create a law, or some people were hoping to create a law that said that any town that has senior housing incentives, those incentives would apply at that time to all other types of housing. And we had the public here, and after a lot of discussion, we decided to put it off for another year, because it was meant to be a senior housing article, and all other types of housing is, just, in my opinion, was crazy. But now this year, they threw something into the omnibus bill that didn't pass on its own. And this says, any senior housing incentives apply to workforce housing. From my own point of view, I don't think it's ideal, but I would be willing to go ahead with that if it was also limited to the location where the senior housing was located. But our council told us that the incentives would apply to any location in town. And I think I can't support that. And then the other issue is that it only applies to the incentives. It does not apply to any of the limitations. So in our senior housing article, we have incentives, but to balance the incentives, we have requirements associated with them. Those requirements would have no standing.
So can you be concrete, just, I'm gonna turn to our senior housing.
Page 64.
Yeah, and, so. So, where we say the gross area of senior housing dwelling units in a single development shall average no larger than 1,200 square feet. Does that then apply to workforce housing or not?
I think the issue is that the law is so vaguely and badly written that these things will probably, if they are decided, they'll be decided in court. Because I don't think anybody knows.
That doesn't sound like an incentive, that sounds like a limitation, and
Yeah.
So the
the
limitation
limitations wouldn't be
would
important.
not apply.
Only incentive.
So this
So-
this limitation doesn't apply, and does it mean that it doesn't apply to senior housing anymore?
No,
No, it just
no.
doesn't apply to
The
workforce.
housing,
Yeah.
okay. And interior common areas shall not be counted as residential square footage within the structure.
Well, that strikes me as an incentive.
Okay, so that would apply.
Yeah, but really, we're flying blind because
Yeah.
there are no precedents. The language is so general.
So what do you propose?
I put years and years into getting this thing passed. So to me, it's just awful.
Are you proposing to repeal it?
We put in, when we did it the second year, we put in a sunset clause that if other.
Wait, Jay, we'll read it. You can
Yeah,
read
you
it.
can read it, go ahead.
Where is it?
If the the state changes it to provide incentives.
So we're done, this is repealed.
As of next summer.
July.
As of the 20
Right,
some.
yeah, July of 23, I think.
20, yeah.
Oh, okay.
But
Yeah.
See that?
there's,
It's
so it'll
the
be,
last
it's
sentence.
everything's taken care of. The question is, what does the board wanna do nothing or whatever?
Well, so there's nothing in the existing statewide ordinance that prohibits a town from enacting independently limitations on workforce housing or imposing other, so we could separately enact whatever limitations.
No, we could not, any senior housing will apply incentives only to workforce housing and everywhere.
Yes, but does that limit the town's ability to separately enact
Workforce
limitations
housing.
on limitations on workforce housing?
I don't
I
think so.
don't think so either.
Well, yeah, so if a town doesn't have any senior housing ordinance at all,
Right.
then you're asking whether the town.
No, what I'm saying is, so we don't have a workforce housing ordinance.
Not per se.
Right now.
We have affordable
So
housing.
we have the senior housing ordinance. If you ignore this final provision here, what would happen is that all of the incentives in this senior housing ordinance, but none of the limitations would henceforth apply to workforce housing as well. What I'm asking
I
is,
see.
could we independently enact limitations on workforce housing as a standalone provision, or a standalone set of rules that would supplement the incentives that are applicable as a result of this
Basically as a
new law?
workaround?
Yeah,
I don't
I
think you
don't think
can.
so.
And the reason I don't think you can is because the legislature has taken the stand that these rules now apply to workforce housing. And the town, they didn't give the town the authority to countermand those.
well, we wouldn't be countermanding the incentives,
You'd
we
be
would just be.
countermanding the state, the legislature's
I
article
think
saying.
it's
so.
likely we get sued.
Yeah.
Maybe we get sued, maybe we win, maybe we lose, but we don't wanna be in.
Yeah, it's a road not to go down.
Okay, so then this is gonna go away and that's gonna be the end of it,
I mean, to me, it's,
at least until there's some
Just-
clarification
yeah,
about what the law.
I mean, I think we need clarification,
Well, I
but
wouldn't-
I think it's just such a pity because the background to this law is that there's a lot of senior housing, particularly in large municipalities, because they're profitable and they have, at least conceptually lower, people feel lower impact on taxes. So I think it's well intended, but what the result is that these towns, these municipalities in the south mostly, with all of these senior housing aren't doing enough for workforce housing. But when you take a one-size-fits-all and you apply that to a small town, for instance, if somebody found an appropriate piece of land way out in the forest, mountain forest district, and built 10 units of workforce housing, we'd have to maintain those roads, which are impossible to maintain. And we'd have, 25 people going back and forth. And once you put that in, you're gonna get more people in the mountain and forest district. So zoning from Concord for anywhere, but for small towns is just crazy.
So John, you think after this law is in effect for a while, that there may be so many problems with it, that it may get changed?
I mean,
I mean, I'm thinking maybe we should just wait, let the sunset happen.
I would imagine that,
And see what
that
happens
there are
with it.
gonna be problems.
Right.
Number one, seniors and workforce housing are two different, by law, two different groups with two different needs. For instance, we put our senior housing in the central area primarily, one of the main reasons was because older people are wanna be around services and shorter distances to walk. Workforce housing is aimed at younger people and families, and I've talked to, in fact, the first senior housing thing I presented had workforce housing in it. And what the board told me, and they were right, was these are really not appropriately merged and should be handled differently. So, you know, one of the suggestions is that if we were gonna do workforce housing, it would be, you know, down further south. So, putting those two together creates, first of all, a distance, this only applies to towns that have senior housing, so it's a disincentive to have senior housing, which is bananas.
Yeah, it's a stupid thing, but I think maybe we should just let it terminate and then see what the state does and see what, you know, maybe we can go back to it if they come to their senses or, you know, somebody down there realizes all the problems.
You know, if you wanna get it off your chest, we could write a letter.
Well, I would like to do that.
As the,
I would like to,
Express all of the reasons why we think this is.
I'd be glad to take a stab at it, and I have been in touch with our legislators over the years about this. So I'd be delighted if we did that as a board.
I'm sad to see this sunset, and I think the appropriate response is to develop some standards for workforce housing and then come back with, hopefully things will change in Concord so that we can bring this back.
Yeah,
yeah, well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Wait,
But we have
wait and
to
see what happens and then.
Get it enacted again, because
Right.
there's no provision to
Right.
de-sunset.
Right,
right, we have to pass
Right,
it again.
yes, we
Well,
would,
this
and
pa-
that's
this-
fair.
yeah.
Yeah, that is fair, that's not a problem, and if people don't want it, fine, but it passed a 2-to-1 margin, it was very popular.
Yeah,
So at this point, do we have this one, project that has been approved under this?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's, on the common
Yeah,
here? And so regardless of where they stand in construction, they've got their.
they're done, they're good.
Approval,
They're
so.
grandfathered.
They're grandfathered.
they've got a substantial investment in the project, like they have poured foundations
yeah.
and all that, so they're going. Had they not committed as much of money to the project, it could be argued that the rules have changed and you can't go forward. So there's those kind of provisions in New Hampshire law, but they definitely have, you know,
I
substantial
mean,
work.
they've certainly made,
Yeah.
I mean, it's been years, but
Yeah.
they're still,
Yes,
they're
they're
working
making progress.
Yeah,
continuously.
Yes,
it's
yes.
clearly
But-
under.
Yeah.
But Ray was talking about possibly doing two more in the future, but he wouldn't be able to do
Well,
that.
this
he'll
is still
have
in
another
effect.
year,
Yeah.
he has a year.
Well, but
He
he
should-
won't be able to, if this terminates, he won't be able to
True,
do it too.
he needs
If
to,
he's thinking like 2 years or 3 years from now,
yeah,
But all he
Really
has to
good thinking
do is,
Put this
yeah,
he just has to get his approval from
item
us.
J in there, you know.
Yeah.
Before
otherwise
this
it would be
terminates.
more-
Well,
he needs
you know,
to
that-
get
that's
his
what happened
approval
was
and then
we
he
had
needs
good
to make
public
some
input.
progress, yes.
And that was
Yeah,
what we
well,
came
he should-
away
we
with,
should let
is
him know
that
that at this
this way we could
point. I have a feeling he's not.
have our cake and
too
not
much in
eat
the near
it too,
future, but
Yeah.
just in case, we should let him know.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll take a stab at a draft letter to send to somebody, howling
Chris.
howling at the moon.
Chris,
Yeah,
So there was this big article in the paper about all, I think related to this bill, all these requirements that towns need to
right.
comply with, and or training suggestions and stuff like
The
that.
training is not mandatory
Correct.
yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if it becomes mandatory.
Are there other
The-
issues within that legislation that
Yes,
we
the
should be
findings,
thinking about, or-
this is really important and frankly appropriate.
Right, and I think we
Generally,
we substantially meet that.
But I
that-
think we need to really,
Right. I
We
mean,
don't put the findings in our decisions, so we need to start.
we need to really
elaborate those.
formally and,
Yeah.
not just sort of, oh,
Well-
this, that, or the other thing, be really disciplined about laying out our findings.
Yeah.
And I think too, the other controversy that I saw on Planlink was, it's 65 days now, isn't it? that
Change
we would
some.
have to make the
We
decision.
can't appeal to the select board for
An extension.
extension,
Right,
so.
and so, you know, we can,
So we have to deny
We have to deny without prejudice.
prejudice,
Right,
and that just
right.
happens, and if it's because we don't have enough information, you know, that's usually why we do it, it's because we don't know about this or that, and we're specific about
So
this.
does that mean that people then have to reapply and repay?
so,
Well,
Unintended
I wouldn't think that they
consequences.
need to repay, they would
Yeah.
have to pay for notices, but they shouldn't have to do another application
Right.
fee kind of thing, because we both, hopefully we can mutually agree to just extend it.
right,
That would be the best.
That makes the
That's
best,
right.
because it's a cooperative thing, and,
Right.
yeah.
it's not,
All right,
not the
well,
end of the world.
All right,
And the other
and,
thing in that was, there was also making sure that all the fees are posted.
right. and-
Oh, right, the
And-
website,
Yeah,
yeah.
so that's been done to the website already.
Yeah.
Okay,
Excellent.
good
But
job.
it doesn't say also that the board may require other studies that would then
I've
be.
not put that on, I can add
Because
that.
I think that that's fair for people to understand that, you know, if a butters bring up something that we don't already require, we may need, independent study of something that could
Right.
cost the applicant a little bit more, so I think that needs to be made clear, and it's something that we haven't anticipated in our regulations.
Okay, and, Hebe, did you have anything you wanted to add, or question, or?
No, I think that the wait and see approach to the state makes good sense to me.
Okay. And does anybody on the board have questions for Hebe?
About what?
She wants to be an alternate,
Is
so
that on our agenda tonight?
it's not on the agenda. It's an ongoing, we asked her to come to meetings
Okay.
so that the board could, she and the board could experience each other and ask
Okay.
each other questions. So she is doing that.
Well, I mean, Phoebe, I don't mean to be rude, but I also am very honest and frank with everybody that I speak to. And I love what time and effort you've given to us. I do have a problem with the tone of some of your listserv postings, because I feel, and you're entitled to your opinion, of course, as a private individual, but I feel as though the tone of your listserv postings isn't appropriate coming from a planning board alternate or a planning board member. So, I don't know, that's my personal feeling, and I just wanted to express that to you. And I'm sorry if that feels like I'm stepping on your toes, because I know that you care passionately about the town and things in the town, but I just needed to say that. And I think I would not feel comfortable with some of the tone that you express yourself in if you were to become an alternate member of this board. So I don't wanna, it's not to say don't express your opinion, but it seems like it, to be done in a less controversial way, or more of a, collaborative way or something like that. So I'm just telling you how I feel, and I'll always do that. I promise. I'm always, you know, poor Rich and everybody else here gets disagreed with by me because I bring those things up, and I
Yeah, well,
just have to
I think
say that.
we actually, you know, we benefit from your honesty and directness, so there's nothing wrong with that. And I think one thing to keep in mind is that if you do become an alternate, your relationship, well, you can't go on listserv, basically, unless it's about things that don't relate to town business, or business that could be related to planning board stuff. And I can tell you, I'll speak personally, how frustrating it's been for me over the years. I've certainly wanted to say a lot. You can't imagine, but being in this role, you can't. And you have to be more reserved than you might wanna be, so just keep that in mind.
Right, and I'll second that. I looked really hard at the RSA 91A, right to know, and I have come to believe that as frustrating as it is not to be able to write things on the list, that's not only the law, but it's a good idea.
Right, I mean, it's frustrating for those of us on the boards, but on balance, I agree, I think it's a good idea.
Particularly when you would like to respond to someone else who has something, who's getting something wrong.
Yes,
Right,
that's
exactly,
correct, yes.
exactly, because
Doesn't
a
have
lot of,
facts or
a
whatever.
lot of things that, I'm hard to believe that on the internet or the listserv that people could get things wrong. And when they go up there and your blood pressure is going, you know, through the roof, you can't, you can't do it. Is there anything you wanted to say?
Well, I haven't been a member of any of these boards.
Right.
Yeah, but we're
First
discussing,
of all,
we're discussing it prospectively.
second of all, I think that there are some gaps in communication between a number of our governmental entities that just simple communication could solve a lot of the frustrations and problems. They wouldn't be postings of adversarial nature, they would just be news from the select board, news from the planning board, whatever. You know, you are shutting down possible communication avenues unnecessarily, and I think there's some opportunities that could improve feelings all around town if,
So, like.
or if we're open to it.
So Rich mentioned, what is it, 91?
91A, you're right.
Yeah, so in what ways, without violating the right to know laws, are you talking about?
Well, I'm suggesting simple things like posting a summary of the minutes.
Well, the minutes are the summary.
Sharing them more broadly than saying they're on the listserv, or just that they're on the website. Just interesting points, news from the planning board. What has the state done that affects our planning board workings? You know, just informational
Well,
postings.
those are things that if you became an alternate, you could suggest to the board. I think
Absolutely.
what's being suggested, and not just suggested, but you're being told, is that if and when you are appointed an alternate, your relationship to the listserv changes dramatically.
Sure, but I expect to be treated respectfully.
Well, I think we all do.
I've seen some unfortunate interactions, so I just want to be clear that I will expect to be treated respectfully.
I'm not exactly sure what that means. It sort of sounds, I don't know what that means.
Evie, I know City of Lebanon has a communications person whose job it is to populate the website and come up with stuff, and I know Hanover's new town manager is doing videos where he recaps like what's going on in town this month, that kind of thing, so.
Brilliant, brilliant.
Yeah, so towns that are bigger have, I think, addressed your concern, which is a valid concern. And just like, how do we rise to the occasion to do some of those things? And I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think those are good ideas, but I can tell you on a practical level that, you know, I can't put in any more time than I'm already putting in. And we don't have a communications person. So, on a practical level, I don't know how we do that. But if you are appointed, maybe that's something that we can discuss and figure out.
Sure, I've always been about creating information out of data.
Okay,
Great.
all right, we are at the 8:15 mark. Any new business, or
I have nothing new.
anybody else have anything new? Well, then I'd like to thank you all and ask you to do your homework and come back with everything solved next time.
So,
You need a motion to adjourn?
Yes, I'd like,
I'll move.
yeah,
Second.
it's done.
Thanks for attending, Hebe.
Thank you, Hebe.
Just thank you, Hebe.
Okay,